Hi, my name is Officer Daniel Sosa Jones, Pinellas County Schools Police, and what we're here today for is to go over the active threat response provided by the District of Pinellas County. So we're going to go over various slides, and hopefully it will empower you as teachers, students, and staff members to have a better understanding of what we're trying to accomplish throughout the district. An active shooter, they say it can never happen here, but it happens everywhere. It happens in churches, it happens in schools, it happens in movie theaters. It can happen anywhere there are mass gatherings, and we don't want anybody to freeze. We want people to have an active thought process and plan so they understand that they have options. The data in 2016 to 2017, all or most shooters in an active shooter incident were single shooters. All but one of the school shooters was a current or former student. Shooting was stopped 16% of the time by citizens. 22% of the time, assailant was killed by police, 26% of the time by suicide, and 36% of the time, the assailant was apprehended by police. Reinforces the importance of preparation by school staff. It's going to happen, and if you can do something about it, you may have to be the one who does something about it. The average response time. 2 minutes is the average time before 911 is called in a school shooting event. 2 minutes is a lifetime. If you're going to sit around and wait for 2 minutes, you've already given up. You have to have a plan. The national average for police response is even longer than that, 9 minutes. 3 shots for every 3 seconds, about a 3-yard distance. So for every second, there's a shot. So 9 minutes, there's a lot of seconds going by for you not to do something. You have to do something. The importance of school security, what did we learn? There remains no effective attacker profile, meaning that there is no one model, there is no one exact description of this is what the guy or girl looks like. There's no profile. No signs, indicators that the attack will likely occur. In the case of the Marjory Stoneman Douglas attacker, most law enforcement contacts were not crime related, meaning that that shooter had law enforcement contact, but it wasn't a criminal activity. So there were no warning signs given to him or given to the local area police. At least 30 people knew of behavior but failed to report it. And that's going to go back to your Sandy Hook promise. If you see something, say something. If you see something that's odd or off, bring it to the attention of somebody. I tell everybody all the time, I rather respond and investigate something and nothing be there than respond and you say, I should have said something. If you see something that feels off, please bring it to our attention, bring it to a staff member's attention, your administrator's attention. Let us do follow-up. At least 6 people reported concerns that were not addressed at the school level. And again, that reiterates everything that I had just said. If something seems off, bring it to the attention of a teacher, a staff member, a guidance counselor, behavior specialist, your SRO, anybody that you can bring the attention to and let them do a follow-up. You'll feel better about it if something is found. You'll feel even worse if it goes undiscovered. Local and federal enforcement failures to process and respond to reports prior to the incident. Again, reiterating what I said, when something was brought to and no follow-up was conducted, think about what could have been prevented. I mean, that's very, very imperative that you understand that a few words of, hey, could you go talk to this student, might redirect that whole incident into another area. We have a couple of web addresses that we want you to go to and look at, and this is from the Sandy Hook Promise. One of them is Evan, and one of them is The Point of View. Both are very powerful videos, and it just reiterates about the importance of paying attention and seeing something and saying something. What have we done here at the district? What have we done at your schools? Improved awareness and reporting of any concerns. Reporting to a school administrator is imperative. From the janitor all the way up to the principal. If you see something, you have to say something. Fortify Florida app, it's statewide. Say Something app is created by the people from Sandy Hook. Addressed school security. Facility improvements continue daily. Officers, administrators, HPOs are locating and noting deficiencies, physical, on the campus and trying to correct those as quickly as possible. Regular reporting of deficiencies, improved communication, and that is key. Some people had said to me throughout this, well, I didn't think like I should say anything. No, everybody has the right to bring a concern to light. You have to do that. It's important that you do that. Improved preparedness. Active threat school staff training drills. As everybody went through last year and you'll go through this year, there'll be many times where you'll go through the active threat drills and it will help you get into a mental preparedness in case something happens. Practice makes for great preparation. With all we know, how can we prepare? Understand and use consistent terminology. The term active threats means just that. There is something actively going on and we have to address that issue. Closed campus means just that. The campus is closed. Nobody's on or off. Use the 222 personal active threat planning template, and everybody needs to familiarize themselves with the 222 plan. Options-based responses, run, hide, and fight. And we'll get into all of that. Run, hide, fight. Say it again in your head. Get used to that term, run, hide, fight, in that order. I always say to everybody, your best and first option is to run. I have kids that go to these schools. I have kids that are in every grade level of these schools, and I tell them all the time, run. It's your first option. Know your school crisis plan. If you're not familiar with it, familiarize yourself with it. If you don't know it, find somebody who does. Somebody needs to know, and you need to be that somebody. Consider the safety in classroom layout and daily routine. When you're in your classroom or you're walking the hallways, know what's behind you, know what's in front of you, understand where your exits are and where your entrances are. Understand campus layers of protection. Property perimeter, staff or secure gates, building perimeter, secure doors, gates between buildings, classroom, keep doors locked. Identify safe areas within the room. Every room in the district should have the areas marked off that are safe. They should be lined and you should be able to hide in those areas to conceal your location to anybody who wants to look into the classroom. If you don't see that, bring it to your administrator's attention and make sure that it's addressed. Organize classroom with deep corner and safe areas free of obstacles and heavy furniture. And again, like I said, in every classroom you should have those deep corners marked out. And if you don't have it done, bring it to somebody's attention. We have to prepare. How can we prepare? Again, like I said, communication and technology is key. How does your school communicate? We're now utilizing the lockdown button or the active threat button. When that is utilized, it immediately notifies the police department and all agencies will be responding. The PA system, if readily available and safely available, somebody will address and speak on the PA system. Radios and IP phones. Any form of communication is acceptable. And I tell everybody when I teach this class, look, if the only way you can get out is on Facebook Messenger and you start sending information to somebody on the outside through Facebook Messenger, well then somebody's getting the information and that's better than no information. But like I said, ideally you'd like to use, a safe form of communication. Do it from a safe location. Who can initiate an active threat response? And like I always say, people would always say, I don't know if I could do that. I wasn't sure if I could do that. I would always tell my kids, look, if it doesn't seem safe, don't go in the water. If you are swimming in a lake and a shark fin comes up, sharks don't belong in a lake, something is off, get out of the water. So anyone can initiate the active threat response. If you ever smell smoke or gas and see fire on campus, you are empowered to use and utilize the fire drill. You don't need permission, you don't ask anybody. If you reasonably believe there's a fire, then by all means, you have that power to do so. All personnel are empowered to call 911 if you feel there is a medical emergency on campus. And again, firefighters, medical personnel, police officers are not going to respond and go, man, I can't believe this was a false alarm. They're going to say, I'm glad we got here and it was a false alarm. That's what we prefer. All personnel are equally empowered to initiate the active threat procedures if you feel loss of life or serious harm is possible. And I got to say that again, all personnel. Do this by contacting your school's main office immediately. Roles defined. School resource officer will respond to the threat and communicate with law enforcement. And I want you guys to understand, everybody here at the Pinellas County Schools Police is going to the threat. It sounds callous, but we have to get there. We've learned a lot from MSD. We are going to the threat. I promise you, we will go to the threat. Responding law enforcement officers will take control of the scene. And you have to understand that when responding law enforcement officers arrive, they could be wearing various uniforms, everything from the state troopers to Florida Fish and Game to Largo PD. It just depends on where your location is. Somebody always asks this question, and I'm going to address it. Well, how do I know if it's a police officer? Well, if you know that people are actively getting hurt in that direction and the guys are running towards that direction, follow their instructions and keep getting away from the threat. Let them get to the problem. School safety officer will respond to the threat and communicate with law enforcement. School administration, empower your staff to act safely, communicate, and coordinate. To teachers, to counselors, and behavior specialists, understand that those kids are going to look up to you for guidance. Those kids are going to look up for you and say, what do we do now? And when they look at you, have a plan in your head. School staff, review active threat resources, attend training, participate in the drills. You play the way you practice. So if you practice poorly, you're going to play poorly. Practice with intention. Make the safest decisions for yourself and the students. Based on the information that you have, make the safest decisions for yourself and the students. And we're going to get into the run, hide, fight section of this, and I'm going to turn this over to my colleague, Mr. Cal Gordon.
We're going to start off with the response options, run, hide, and fight. All right, training resources. All hazards e-learning classes. Always want to have your safety school plans, age-appropriate safety drills, content and documents from your elementary, your middle, and your high schools. Again, your PowerPoint presentation, safety drill active threat response options for your classroom discussions. Also, elementary emergency scenario cards for classroom discussion. Drill guides were given out at the beginning of this training, and so you should have those handy. All right, when we want to use our resources. Always review training materials every month, and that's especially for your administrators. You will not be notified of the drill, the date, or the time. Early preparation is vital. Discuss options for each drill with students. Your threat locations, known or unknown. A drill agenda is in the drill guide, and every school should have them. Every administrator should have them in the classrooms for the entire school year. Expectations for preparation and participation for students and staff, always. So your active threat run option. Run when location of the threat is known. Again, we don't run to the threat, you run away from the threat. And when escape is likely. Always consider students' age and physical capabilities. Now there may be some teachers in the classroom that have students with disabilities, so that's going to be up to that teachers to make that choice on whether that those students are going to hide in the classroom, go to their safety spot, or run. Always assess your situation. Look and listen and run only and only if it's safe. Remember, only 2% of the active assailants events involve more than one offender. Again, run away from the danger. You don't want to put yourself in a situation where you're going to be facing a shooter in a situation, especially in your schools. Reassess the location for your threats as you run. Again, use cover versus concealment. You want to get behind something that's going to hide you if it's necessary. Your run option. Always want to run with hands free. Don't pick up anything. Leave that classroom or that area hands free. Do not use cars to escape. A lot of students sometimes will think about going, first thing they want to do is go to their cars. Do not have the students go to their cars. They want to get out of the area as quickly as possible, and your run option is one of them. All right, know your safe places in your classrooms and within the school itself. Or always know your rallying points near your school. It's important that the administrators go over this with school staff so they know what the location they have to respond to if they have any students with them. All right, tell others about the threat as soon as you pass. Again, you're going to be having law enforcement personnel running towards the threat. And you want to, if all possible, you always want to have information and provide it to that law enforcement entity. All right, don't wait for them. Don't wait for them, keep running. Students should know evacuation routes, and especially it's up to the administrators and the staff to know the evacuation routes. Identify alternative hide locations when necessary within each classroom. So if that one spot is not working out, and then it's up to that administrator or that teacher to get those kids to another safer spot within the classroom itself. All right, what to know. Law enforcement will use single and team responses. As always, that first response is going to be your school resource officer. That's his job to respond to that threat, and other agencies will follow. All right, the focus is to stop the threat. Don't expect law enforcement to stop for the injured. Again, your SRO is your first responder. They're going to be responding to that threat, and they're not going to be stopping to attend to injured people. You will be pushed aside when evacuating because that law enforcement entity is trying to get to that threat, so you may be pushed aside, and so that individual can go to that threat. Be sure to show your hands. When you're running, that's why we tell you to run hands-free. You want to run, if it's all possible, you're running with your hands up in the sky. Do not attempt to stop first responders. It's important that we get to that threat so we can stop that threat. Law enforcement will arrive in various uniforms, and that can be anywhere from detectives who are in plain clothes, a patrol officer or patrol deputy, off-duty plain clothes officers, or officers with tactical gear on. You should always listen to the direction of the shots. Always listen. Give a brief description as all possible, and always provide locations and details. Again, more help will come to that site. When we're drilling, the drill is announced. The drill involves everyone on campus. You know, whether there's going to be parents on campus or not, they're going to be involved in that drill also. Look, listen, and run only when safe. Bring a student roster, means of communication, and classroom keys. You decide the route. You decide the route. Adjust your route if it's needed. Practice different exit points. We don't want to practice the same exit point because you never know, that might be another location that shooter or active assailant is coming from. So you always want to practice in different points, at different points. All right, you want to drill quickly and quietly. Quick walk, pace stopping at proper line, and if it's possible, discuss when, where off-campus rally points could be. Again, it's important that the administrators reach out to the staff and make sure that the staff is going to know where those locations are going to be. All right, discuss the plan for calling 911 when it's safe. The administrator announces the drill completion, and they give feedback to the administrator. All right, your HPO, maintenance, address facility concerns, and they will address law enforcement officers' recommendations. Hide when the location of the threat is not known, or when physically unable to run. Again, you may have students with needs, a student with disabilities in the classroom, and that the only option is going to be for you to hide. Doors should be already locked. Again, one of the responsibilities of SROs is to go around each and every day, each period, to make sure that classroom doors are locked. So it's important that you keep those doors locked. Locked doors create a barrier, offering more time to react. So if that shooter comes to a door that's locked, 9 times out of 10, they're going to continue on to see if they can get something that's not locked. So always keep your doors locked. Call students into the room whenever possible. Again, it's important to have them keep quiet as possible. Draw shades, turn off your lights. Always create a barrier when time permits. So anything that can protect the students and the staff, like tables and chairs, you want to throw in front of the doors or put in front of the doors. Be flexible and be creative. Again, remain calm and quiet is very important, because if that shooter hears someone in a particular room and that door is unlocked, then the most likely probability that shooter is going to go to that door. Again, mute your cell phones, have them on mute at all times, and move to the interior of your rooms. Access directions of the threat and use deep corners. Again, those deep corners, those are lines in the room, in your classrooms that are marked where it's most likely going to be a safe spot for the students and staff. Use cover. Again, try to hide behind not necessarily concealment, but cover. Call 911 when it's safe, and consider an avenue of escape. Always have a second plan. Consider that avenue of escape. Plan to fight. It may be your last resort. Okay, again, the drill is announced. The drill involves everyone. Be the example. You always want to be the example. You want to lead by example. Is a threat location known? Is it safer to hide rather than to run? Again, one of your options. You have a person with disabilities, a person with special needs, and that person can't run, then that only option you may have is to hide. Where is the safest place to hide? Again, those lines in your classroom. Doors should be locked, and it's very important, they should be locked at all times. At all times. Sweep kids away from hallways when appropriate, and remain calm and quiet. Cover your windows and darken the room. Build a barricade when it's possible. Use cover, the interior of the room, and again your deep cover, the lines in your classroom. Consider when or where it is safe to call 911. 911 text is a legitimate option in Pinellas County. And plan to fight. Consider escape and fight. Have that discussion with the students. It's up to the staff to have that discussion with the students, especially during drill time. If we're hiding and our last option is to fight, and that shooter comes into the classrooms, the students need to know what to do. They need that guidance from the teachers. All right, again on drills. The administrator announces the drill completion. Never practice unlocking your own doors. Someone will come around, most likely law enforcement will come around and unlock the doors for you. Give feedback to the administrator. It's very important that you give feedback to the administrator after the drill is over with. HPO address facility concerns and also law enforcement recommendations. The last resort is to fight. When confronted with an assailant, you are empowered to do whatever you have to do to keep your students and yourself safe. If it means fighting, that's your last resort. Again, throw objects, scream, yell, any way that you can distract the shooter. Use improvised weapons. Some of the techniques you can do is swarm the assailant. Everybody rush your assailant at one time. Get control of that situation. Set up an ambush. Secure the attacker's weapon if all possible. You always want to grab that weapon if all is possible. Action is quicker than reaction. Some of our post-events considerations. Rescue teams will respond along with law enforcement and fire rescue. Family reunification locations will be determined in your school's crisis response plan. Also, debriefing of the victims and witnesses. Triaging the wounded. Transporting the injured. And your school will become a crime scene. Some of our training takeaways you want to prepare. Consider taking first aid or stop the bleeding training. This life skill can be applied anywhere. Take advantage of the drills. You always want to take advantage of the drills. Again, practice like it's a real thing. Practice like it's a real thing. Drill dates and times should be confidential. Your feedback is important to improve overall safety. Always understand your authority to make the decisions and take action and take ownership. Some of our next steps: classroom safety guide for the staff. A quick explanation of the guide. Your classroom teachers were given a hard copy of this per state mandate. So every staff, every teacher should have those. All of the staff can access the ERIP. It's the school plan, part 4. The ERIP is easy to download and to print if you want it. Again, 222 personal active threat planning template. It's explanation of the document. When we leave, you will go back to your classroom or office and complete this document. So make sure that document is completed. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us. I hope you all got something out of this. And now you're going to return back to your locations and go over your personal active threat planning guide, which includes your 222. And that's for locations you are most often, places to run, and places to hide.